Russian kid claims he is from Mars, says that all humans live forever. A Russian boy named Boriska attracted worldwide attention a few years ago when he claimed that he was actually from the planet Mars. Boriska Priyanovich, or Boriska, was born on January 11, 1996 in the city of Volsky. According to his mother, since he was 4 years old he used to visit a nearby mountain in order to fulfill his energy needs. Pravdaport.com reports. Boriska's parents, nice, educated and hospitable people, are worried about their son's fascinating talents. They do not know how others will perceive Boriska when he grows up. They say that they would be happy to consult an expert to know how to raise their wunderkind. Being a doctor, his mother could not help but notice that the baby boy could hold his head already and 15 days after his birth. He uttered the first word Baba when he was 4 months old and started to pronounce simple words soon afterwards. At 1 year and a half he had no difficulties in reading newspaper headlines. At age of 2 years he started drawing and learned how to paint 6 months later. When he turned 2, he started going to a local kindergarten. Tutors immediately noticed the unusual boy, his uncommon quick-wittedness, language skills and unique memory. However, his parents witnessed that Boriska acquired knowledge not only from the outer world, but through mysterious channels as well. They saw him reading unknown information from somewhere. No one has ever taught him, Boriska's mother said. Sometimes he would sit in a lotus position and start telling us detailed facts about Mars, planetary systems and other civilizations, which really puzzled us, the woman said. How may a little boy know such things? Space became the permanent theme of his stories when the boy turned 2 years old. Once he said that he used to live on Mars himself. He says that the planet is inhabited now too, although it lost its atmosphere after a mammoth catastrophe. The Martians live in underground cities, Boriska says. The boy also says that he used to fly to Earth for research purposes when he was a Martian. Moreover, he piloted a spaceship himself. It took place in the time of the Lemurian civilization. He speaks about the fall of Lemuria as if it occurred yesterday. He says that Lemurians died because they ceased to develop themselves spiritually and broke the unity of their planet. When his mother brought him a book entitled Whom We Are Originated From by Ernest Moldashev, he got very excited about it. He spent a long time looking through the sketches of Lemurians, pictures of Tibetan pagodas, and then he told his parents of Lemurians and their culture for several hours non-stop. As he was talking, his mother noticed that Lemurians lived 70,000 years ago and they were 9 meters tall. How can you remember all this? The woman asked her son. Yes, I remember and nobody has told me that. I saw it, Boriska replied. In Moldashev's second book In Search of the City of Gods, he looked through pictures for a long time and recollected a lot about pyramids and shrines. Then he claimed that people would not find ancient knowledge under the Great Pyramid of Cheops. The knowledge will be found under another pyramid, which has not been discovered yet. The human life will change when the Sphinx is opened. It has an opening mechanism somewhere behind the ear. I do not remember exactly, he said. Boriska is one of so-called indigo children. They start to appear on Earth, as a token of the forthcoming grand transformation of the planet. The boy says that the displacement of Earth's poles will cause 2 catastrophes, in 2009 and 2013. Only a few people will survive, he said. No, I have no fear of death, for we live eternally. There was a catastrophe on Mars where I lived. People like us still live there. There was a nuclear war between them. Everything burnt down. Only some of them survived. They built shelters and created new weapons. All materials changed. Martians mostly breathe carbon dioxide. If they flew to our planet now, they would have to spend all the time standing next to pipes and breathing in fumes, Boriska said. If you are from Mars, do you need carbon dioxide? If I am in this body, I breathe oxygen. But you know, it causes aging. Specialists asked the boy why man-made spacecraft often crash as they approach Mars. Martians transmit special signals to destroy stations containing harmful radiation, Boriska replied. The boy has deep knowledge of space and its dimensions. He is also aware of the structure of interplanetary UFOs. He talks about that like an expert, draws UFOs on slates and explains the way they work. Here is one of his stories. It is 6 layers. The upper layer of solid metal accounts for 25%, the second layer of rubber, 30%, the third layer of metal, 30%, and the last layer with magnetic properties, 4%. If we give energy to the magnetic layer, spaceships will be able to fly across the universe. Boriska has a lot of difficulties with school. After an interview he was taken to the 2nd grade, but soon they tried to get rid of him. He constantly interrupts teachers and says that they are wrong. Now the boy has classes with a private tutor. Mars had canals, lakes, green vegetation, swamps, and animal life on the surface, but NASA, the disinformation agency, wants you to believe it is a dead world so you will not expect ETs live there. They have never shown the public most of the 2,000 photos they promised us with Viking Eye. When the first Apollo astronauts landed on our moon in 1969, they were shocked to find it already inhabited. Thousands of Americans, Soviets, British, French, and Australians were already living there. Astronauts who discovered too much truth and were considered security risks died in those famous accidents in the shuttle or on the launch pad, etc. Have you ever wondered why the Hubble, the most expensive and expertise telescope ever invented, was flawed so it would not take the kinds of photos it should produce? Do you really believe all those technological experts from prestigious universities with billions of dollars at their disposal could make such embarrassing idiot mistakes? Please, do not be so naive, if you so do. This was a planned accident because that telescope was too good. It would photograph things on the Moon and Mars and in orbit that the public astronomers are not supposed to see. The footage of the American spacecraft landing on Mars before Apollo landed on the Moon leaked out in major public British TV for one evening, thanks to a smuggling scientist, before it was censored and never made it to America. British authorities tried to call it a hoax to cover up the leak, but it was no hoax. The only astronaut who has ever died outside of duty said it was the truth on video, and he was silenced. We have seen that interview too, as well as a secret video stewing the scientist who leaked that video being assassinated. A book exposing Alternative 3 appeared in 1976 and was quickly forced out of print. I have read it. You can't even order it, and the printers will not issue a new release in spite of a huge demand. Very strange to turn down the big profit. Not really. On Public France Inter TV on August 3, 1962, at 8 a.m., and also in the weekly magazine Le Mille, was another leak that was covered up fast. Alan Ayac reported. Why has no one spoken of the mysterious message heard on the Moon? 20 untranslatable words. Perhaps it proves that other men exist, something that NASA wished to hide. Words which really sow the seeds of panic. Everything was going well that day on our moon. Then at 11:15 an extraordinary fading occurred and contact with Houston was lost. Wooden, who was in charge of telecommunications, had his attention drawn by a breathing sound and a long whistle. A sentence was constantly repeated on one note, varying from a small to a shrill tone, and from lightly stressed sounds to raucous exclamations. Luckily the transmission was recorded on Lam's tape recorder, and Wooden transmitted it to NASA. Here are the 8 separate words. Mara Rabbi Aladi Dini and Devari S.A. Kaunzalim. Why did the Berlin Wall come down so suddenly and unexpectedly with the Cold War ending and enemies becoming friends? Did President Reagan give a clue at his speech at the 42nd session of the General Assembly of the United Nations, on September 21, 1987, saying, "In our obsessions with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget much unites the members of all humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think that how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask, is not an alien force already among us? In Reagan's speech on December 4, 1985, he stated, "If suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species from another planet, we'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries." Soviet President Gorbachev publicly stated. At our meeting in Geneva, the US President said that if the Earth faced an invasion by extraterrestrials, the US and Soviet Union would join forces to repel the invasion. February 6, 1987 in Soviet life. I absolutely emphasize that you have nothing to fear of the Zitan invasion, as the United Confederation of Planets, the friendly aliens, plans to remove all of them from Earth in 1993. More details in another one of my documents, tapes, and lectures. This is not for the general public. Use common sense, wisdom, discretion in spreading this information, while avoiding skeptics, paranoid types, religious fanatics, and the emotionally unstable. Civilizations on Mars. In 1959 a Martian flying disc spacecraft reportedly landed in the wilderness outside of Moscow, in the Soviet Union, where a secret meeting with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev was arranged. The conference regarded improving relations with Earth, exchanging knowledge, and securing world and interplanetary peace, yet the Soviet government rejected the terms. This report originated from Sergeant Willard Wannall, formerly of Army Intelligence, who investigated UFOs in Hawaii while in the military in the 1950s, and met with us while we were in the Department of Interplanetary Affairs Research Agency in the 1970s. On April 24, 1964, an oval-shaped metallic flying object landed in a farm field in Newark Valley in New York State, and two alien beings emerged from the estimated 20-foot-long craft. Farmer Gary Wilcox drove his tractor toward the object clearly visible on a bright sunny day. The farmer kicked the metallic object to make sure it was real. The two occupants were about 4 feet high, and they carried a square tray full of the different vegetables they had collected from his farm. Wilcox reported that when he confronted the beings stealing his crops, they said, "Don't be alarmed, we have spoken to people before." Gary described the voices as being very strange. They wore white, metallic-looking overalls without seams, stitching or pockets. He could not see their hands or feet. He could not see their other features beneath the full spacesuits, which we speculated were protecting these aliens from the Earth's atmosphere deadly to their race. As Wilcox became inquisitive, one of them stated, "We are from what you know as the planet Mars. We can only come to Earth every 2 years," and left a warning that Earth people should stay out of space. They said that they were studying the organic materials on Earth because of the rocky structure of Mars, and that they did not fly near our cities because they avoided the air pollution. The beings told Wilcox everything in monotone. He asked if he could go with them and they rejected. Wilcox gave the beings a bag of fertilizer and exchanged information about it and other subjects, before they entered the craft and took off. Wilcox was investigated by a psychiatrist and the sheriff department, who found him a normal, truthful person with no emotional problems, and they confessed they believed his UFO experience was real. In February 1972, United Nations diplomat Farid Wiskevit, who investigated UFOs and occupant contacts for the President of the General Assembly, told me and my department agents that she had been contacted by a landed spacecraft from the planet Mars. The reported contact took place in the Mojave Desert, in California, in 1971, and made the front page of the major Arizona newspaper the Daily Arizona Republic. This story also made the front page of the San Clemente Sun-Post in an article written by Fred Zweigels, who covered President Nixon and his staff at the Western White House. Farida stated that the alien offered to admit an ambassador to their interplanetary confederation in this solar system, in exchange for an alien ambassador to the General Assembly of the United Nations, in an attempt to re-establish diplomatic relations with Earth and other planets that had been suspended in ancient times due to hostility on Earth. However, the terms of this peace arrangement were not acceptable to the Security Council, and the exchange was rejected in a secret meeting. Adam Malik, President of the United Nations, was in favor of the treaty and exchange, and he was in contact with us on this matter. Iskiyevit and Malik were frustrated with UN attempts to block this exchange, so they came to us to help try to establish a civilian council to handle affairs between the people on Earth and the Interplanetary Confederation in this solar system. The corporations and military government interests that finance and control the UN did not accept the alien insistence on destroying all weapons, ending all wars, eliminating all polluting fuels, which are all the biggest bank accounts in the world. The most famous astronomers of the early 20th century, including the great Percival Lowell, stated there were signs of intelligent life on Mars. They reported huge areas of green vegetation that expanded and contracted with the melting of the ice caps and the four seasons on Mars. In the 1950s, teachers in public schools in America taught students that the temperature at the Martian equator was about 80 degrees. The man credited with inventing the radio, Marconi, published data that he believed he had received intelligent radio signals from Mars. For 3 decades, several astronomers in different parts of the world reported seeing flashing and moving lights on the surface of Mars, some huge explosions, and other strange unnatural phenomenon. In 1927, the U.S. government carried out a public experiment designed to try to detect intelligent life on Mars, by sending radio transmissions toward that planet and waiting for an answer. A series of dots and dashes, in Morse code, was revealed on a machine, reportedly originating from the direction of Mars, and drawing a human face on a piece of receiving paper in dots and dashes. This drawing in Morse code was displayed in the Bureau of Standards in Washington, D.C. In 1976, the famous Viking probe was sent to Mars by NASA, and out of over 2,000 photos reportedly taken of that planet, only a small fraction were shown to the public. Since most of those photos were not released to the news media, were they trying to hide something? One photo that was published by the U.S. daily newspapers over a decade later, shows what many researchers believe to be pyramids and a huge face carved into the surface of Mars. We have studied other Mars photos showing what appears to be an ancient ruined city, roads, rectangular buildings, and walls. Skeptics say that shadows may make natural objects appear like a man-made structure, yet all the photos taken from different angles of the sun and the cameras show the exact same objects the same way, ruling out the shadow theory. The proof that the NASA space program covers up the truth about Mars is all serious contradictions in their public data. NASA told the public that the Martian atmosphere is less than 1% of that of Earth. Then how could their 50-foot parachute on the rocket they landed on Mars even slow it down? Scientists calculated NASA would need a parachute over a mile wide to slow down the Viking probe in a 1% atmosphere. Their 50-foot parachute would crash like a rock. Furthermore, if the Martian atmosphere is only 1% of Earth's, how can sand dunes similar to our deserts in Arizona be photographed? Impossible. It would take 200-mile-per-hour winds on a planet with air said to be so thin that no winds over 40 miles per hour had ever been recorded, and the warm rising air to cause those winds did not even exist on that part of Mars, according to other NASA data. NASA also claimed that the temperatures around the Martian polar areas was a -90 to 120 degrees, in a region where another NASA statement said the polar ice melts. How can ice melt at -90 to 120 degrees below zero? It melts at 32 degrees above zero. How can NASA land a probe on Mars that shoots out a flame that burns the soil below it at thousands of degrees with deadly chemicals? Then a shovel scoops up that same fried poisoned soil and reports there is no life in it. What life on Earth could survive in soil blasted at thousands of degrees by poisonous chemicals? All the loose topsoil of any potential biological value was blown away by the rocket landing. Fred Steckling, who has some thorough research on Mars, stated that their true findings and most pictures are classified material which to this day have not been shown. He added that we were told Mars is about half the size of Earth, with a surface gravity of about 40% and that the atmospheric pressure is about 7.7 millibars compared to 1000 on Earth. We are also told that the Martian temperature ranged from -22 below zero F to -122 degrees. One Viking probe landed about 1,000 miles closer to their equator than the other one, yet contradicted logic by reporting the temperature at the equatorial region was colder than up north. He added, "The amazed scientists discovered a 100% mistake during atmospheric measurements. The argon content of the Martian atmosphere was not 30%, but only 3%. A mistake of the same magnitude was admitted when a much higher water vapor reading was received than thought possible from Earth measurements." Dr. George Sands, of Mission Control, stated, "It is obviously wetter than we anticipated. There is ground fog at the landing site during part of the day. 30 microns of water have been found in the atmosphere, enough to not only cause ground fog, but also frost and snow." NASA data, to a meteorologist, problematically proves Mars is much warmer than official reports stated. Ground fog is made by warm moist air moving across cool land or water, and ground fog is a product of temperatures above 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Water-based clouds like on Earth have been photographed about 15,000 feet over Mars, and such clouds and fog cannot exist in an atmospheric pressure of only 7.7 millibars. Evidence indicates that 32 degrees above zero must exist up to at least 15,000 feet on Mars, which is higher than Hale-Kala crater in Hawaii. We all know we can live as we walk through Hale-Kala. -122-degree temperatures can exist in certain parts of Mars, just like -127 degrees has been recorded on Earth. There are also thousands of American scientists, engineers, medical personnel, and other specialists secretly living in Martian underground bases and cities, who have either been abducted by UFOs and taken there, or are part of a top-secret exchange program with the Pentagon's MJ-12 agency called Alternative 3. The Pentagon has been secretly trading livestock, minerals, and a labor force to these citizens on Mars, for a couple of decades at least, for technology that was developed into the Star Wars defense system, lasers, superior metals, computers, medical advancements, etc. Martians also live on Earth underground at secret cities and bases, like the one below the Maldive Islands in the Indian Ocean established by Bavians. Most Martians are 3 to 4 feet tall, yet not all of them are the same size or race. The underground civilization has no pollution, disease, crime, poverty, political corruption, malnutrition, or warfare, and few of the problems associated with Earth civilization. It has been described as a technological, intellectual, scientific, computerized paradise, where emotions such as pleasure, sexual ecstasy, and individuality have been eliminated among the locals. Following leaders called Noahs is the norm. Cloning is the main form of reproduction. However, there is also a spiritual civilization on Mars that is so far advanced that the other civilizations cannot interfere with it. The spiritual civilization has very little involvement with Earth and avoids its internal affairs. This civilization is on a higher fourth-dimensional frequency than the other 3D nations on Mars. Scientific American magazine stated, "The Martian environment is by no means so hostile as to exclude life,